My name is Alyssa Petit. I'm reflecting on my critical reading skills. My first experience with the reader response theory this semester is when I read A Warm Path. During this experience, I found out that I have more critical reading skills than I thought. I was pointing out more literary elements that I never did before. I reread to make sure that I understood it. I made sure that I comprehended its purpose and message that the author had hidden throughout the plot. As shown in the picture to the right, there were many annotations that included literary elements that made me understand the book on a more critical reading level, and questions that I had that I was able to answer the second time I read it through. The part that made this short story so memorable was being able to relate to a more personal level of my life. This was the first time I was really able to connect a story to the bigger picture and really notice a sense of imagery that I think made this story so genuinely unique. Although I used reader strategies throughout most of the stories before and after I read Everyday Use, I've never gone so in-depth as far as I did with this one. Everyday Use was the story that I read for my discussion leader seminar. I used a series of strategies to understand this book. One of the strategies I used was finding out information about the author and the historic time period behind the book. For example, we found out this book was written in 1973, which is right after the Civil Rights Movement. Dee and Hakima Barber both symbolize the young adult generation of men and women who want to benefit their life because they finally could, while the mom and Maggie were stuck in the past where they felt like they were still not accepted. Another strategy I used was answering my own questions when I reread the content. I was able to notice more foreshadowing and symbolism that was scattered throughout the story. Throughout my reading, I also picked out words that I did not know. I was told to read at 100% proficiency when I can, because that is one of the only ways I can completely comprehend everything that is read. Lastly, my most important strategy that I used was discussing the contents with other people. This definitely played a huge role, not only to this story, but everything else that was read as well. Discussing it really made me get a deeper understanding of the message that was within the plot, and hearing everybody else's input of how they interpreted it was one of my favorite parts of class. Over the semester, we were asked to use many different digital tools, such as blogging, online journaling, and our own wiki entry. However, my favorite digital tool was the use of the blog. Over the course of the semester, we were able to choose our own book and read in the library for a time span of our Monday lecture time and write a blog entry that night. We used Blogger through Google, which was something I was familiar with before, so I was very excited to use it. I was able to decorate my own background, use a pretty font. I also realized as I continued writing more blogs that I was growing as a critical reader and a writer. I typically struggle with writing, but I found a passion with creative writing, so I really enjoyed this assignment. At first, I found it hard to find a connection between this class and one of the other classes I have taken, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized this class reminded me a lot of my child development class. My professor really urged us to be reading at 100% proficiency when we are studying or reading something, which is a study habit I adopted very quickly. He also really pushed the importance of reading, not only for us young adults, but for our future children. He realized that this generation is always stuck on their electronics, which really negatively influences people more than they realize. But I made the connection of the discussion we had about Cathedral and realizing how much time we spent on our electronics. Some challenges I faced was comprehending some stories. One story I had a really hard time with was The Handsomest Drowned Man in the World. This story really frustrated me because it was so hard to find a deeper meaning and purpose behind it. However, I overcame this challenge when we discussed it in class and hearing how the class interpreted the content. My aha moment did not come to me easily, which frustrated me, but it eventually came to me at the end of the semester during the class of Amontillado. I did not pick up on the religious scriptures until it was pointed out to me, but as soon as it was, I made so many different connections, such as the why itself and the fact that the story was based on a confession. The moment made me realize that I need to start looking at stories more broadly so I can make larger connections like these more often. Lastly, my most memorable experience was with The Warm Path. When we had our discussion about the story, we went outside and observed nature to relate it back to the purpose of the story. I thought it was so meaningful and it opened up my eyes so much. From this experience that some people don't even think about, I was able to draw out how influential reading is to everyday life, which I know I'll remember for the rest of my life.